the drive. Tatum the finish. It is Banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with another episode of You Got Boston at TD Garden after the Celtics beat the Toronto Raptors 125-117 and build a little bit of a lead for the third spot in the Eastern Conference. They're now tied with the New York Knicks with that 24-13 record. And this was a fun game. They needed a bounce back after a tough loss to the Denver Nuggets just the other night. And they got contributions across the board from Payton Pritchard, who had one of his best games of the season, 27 points, 8 assists, and just a single turnover. Sam Hauser, fourth straight start for him. You know, he's kind of taken that Jordan Walsh role in the starting lineup, got the RJ Barrett assignment defensively, which Joe Mazzulla really praised, and he finished with 19 points on 7 of 10 shooting. And Jaylen Brown continues to navigate extra pressure. I thought that despite the fact that there was a lot going on in this game with the defensive coverages that he was seeing, he faced a lot of physicality. He gets to the line 13 times and has a pretty well-balanced performance, finishes with 8 rebounds, 7 assists, and 25 points. And then you got to give a shout out to Anfernee Simons. So he is somebody that over the last couple of weeks, over the last couple of months, you're just seeing the tides turn with his performance, both in the defensive end and on the offensive end. So we'll talk about all of that in this episode. I did want to start off with a shout out to the fact that we have all of the post-game press conferences uploaded on CLNS Media, so you can check out what Payton Pritchard had to say, what Jaylen Brown had to say, and what Anfernee Simons had to say after this one, as well as Joe Mazzulla, who speaks before and after every game. And we will be hearing from Luke Cornett Saturday. So by the time you're listening to this podcast, it's possible that a Luke Cornett shoot-around availability is already uploaded. He was in the building for this game, which was exciting. He was sitting baseline. He was chatting it up with Wick Rosebeck and hugged Jason Tatum, a lot of his former teammates. But tomorrow he'll be a competitor, right? Tonight he was just there as, I guess, a fan. I don't know if he was rooting for the Celtics per se, but certainly got a hero's welcome. Everybody was super excited to see Luke in the building, and it'll be a lot of fun to see his tribute when the Spurs face the Celtics on Saturday night. But in this one, I'll start at the top, and that's with Payton Pritchard, who has gotten, I think, a mixed review for his performance as starting point guard this season. A lot of people know that I was super high on what I thought Pritchard could accomplish this season with a bigger opportunity. And he's averaging just south of 17 points, just north of 5 assists. And his shooting numbers are down, right? He's shooting like 33% from 3, which is almost 8% below what he was shooting last year. And that's kind of been the story around Payton Pritchard's season, is that he's just been in a shooting slump. And part of why it got so much attention was that earlier this season, in October, he was shooting 17% from 3, like ice cold, right? And then there were some times where it bumped up, like November was a good shooting month for him, but then December he shot 30% from 3. So he just hasn't been able to find a consistent rhythm from beyond the arc. And because that's what he's primarily known for, is the 3-point shooting, I think this kind of season that he's having has been lost a little bit. He's having a very strong season as a starting guard in the NBA. Maybe another aspect to why I think his season has been a little underrated is the fact that there's a guard on the bench, Anfernee Simons, who's also been playing exceptionally well and who is somebody that makes starting level money. You know, he makes $28 million. He's somebody that's averaged 22 points a year and a half ago, you know, so everybody knows that he is something that he's capable of. So there was more of a spotlight on, like, okay, they picked Payton Pritchard as the starting guard. Like, what is he going to show? And so with that, I do think that a lot has been lost about the kind of season that he's having. And I want to talk about 2 metrics in particular that really stand out to me and really stood out in this particular game as well. The first is assist to turnover ratio, which when you look at the Celtics offense has been the best in the league since the beginning of December. And it has been number 2 overall for this season. And actually number 2 overall as far as offensive efficiency in NBA history, because offenses are getting more and more efficient every year. And the reason for that is because they don't turn the ball over. They turn the ball over the fewest amount of any team in the NBA, 11.7 times per game. The Thunder are next up. You look at the teams that lead the league in taking care of the ball. It's the Nuggets. It's the Knicks. It's the best teams in the league. Like, that is the key in today's NBA. Steve Kerr recently talked about it. You used to be able to turn the ball over more, and now you just can't, because when you turn the ball over now, teams make you pay. And so it's something that is stressed more and more across the league is you cannot turn the ball over. The only players that are allowed to turn the ball over are your superstars because, first of all, they're facing so much more defensive pressure. But their usage rate, they're scoring the ball, they're doing so much for you that, you know what, you'll live with Jaylen Brown averaging 3.5 turnovers per game. But if you look across the Celtics roster, nobody else turns the ball over. And Payton Pritchard really headlines that charge. He has the best assist to turnover ratio in the NBA at 4.53 assists per turnover. If you look at players that are like eligible in the the big enough small sample size, so at least 20 minutes per game, at least 2 assists per game, like Payton Pritchard is at the top of that list. And tonight, 8 assists, 1 turnover, like that part of his stat line doesn't stand out. Like people don't really notice that that's what he's doing on the floor. The 27 points, that'll stand out because he's only achieved that 6 times this season. So that's more unusual. That's what's going to draw the headlines. What's going to draw the attention. But him not losing the ball, and I asked Joe Mazzulla about it post game, and he pretty much said, it's the fact that he doesn't stop dribbling. He knows how to keep his dribble. He knows how to get out of tough situations. And so a lot of players, when they're trapped, when they're under the basket and there's a big guy there, when it's a difficult situation, there's a double team, there's a blitz, they turn the ball over. Payton Pritchard knows how to keep his dribble alive, and he knows how to keep his possession alive, and he just doesn't lose it. And so when he has a game where he turns the ball over 2 or 3 times, like he's beating himself up about it. He's mentioned it post game, like he's had a 30-point game where he turned the ball over a few times, and I've asked him about it, and he's been like, I turned the ball over 3 times. Like it was a bad game. Like he has such a high bar for that. And after the game, he talked about like a lot of that comes from when growing up, he was playing a couple years above in his youth basketball leagues. Then he was a freshman on varsity in high school. They won 4 state titles. And then he was a freshman at the University of Oregon, playing for Dana Altman, who basically told his team, if you guys don't turn the ball over and you hit the rim, like you get shots on the rim, you'll be in good shape. And this is something that I think is so obvious to people that it's almost boring to discuss. My story on Celtics blog is about this exact thing, but it's an underrated piece of like what has made Payton Pritchard become a starting point guard in the NBA, because it's not the fact that he finally found ways to get a shot off, or like his 3-point shooting last year was obviously elite and like won him 6th man of the year. It's everything else that has been so successful. And so my whole thing this season with Payton Pritchard has been the 3-point shooting is going to come around, and I still think it's going to. They're at 37 games so far this season that they've played. He continues to stress that after every single game. He says to us, like, listen, we're not even halfway there. There's a lot of basketball left to be played, but that's never going to change his ability to take care of the ball, because even when he was coming off the bench, even when he was playing small samples, like he was always near the top of the league when it came to assist to turnover ratio. And that is something that really stood out to me always. The other aspect is the mid-range shooting. And when we talk about mid-range shooting, there is the part of the court where Jaylen Brown is really a lead from, which is right outside of the paint, like kind of the longer twos. And then there's what the NBA calls the non-restricted area paint shots. And that's shots like self-explanatory. It's shots that are from in the paint, but not in the restricted area. And so basically, I looked at the stats for this. He is the most efficient player in the NBA that has attempted more than 50 shots in that zone. More efficient than Nikola Jokic, who's number 2. He's hit just over 63% from that zone, and he's attempted like 112. So it's not like he's low volume. This is where he's been getting his buckets. You look at the game today, he scores 27 points. He's doing most of the damage from inside the arc, and that's actually what's made his season sustainable and why he's still averaging almost 17 points per game, despite the fact that he's just not able to shoot the ball at the same clip that he's used to. So he has found ways to mitigate the fact that the 3-point shot hasn't dropped at the rate that he would have liked. Of course, he wants to shoot 40% from 3. He'd be averaging 20 points per game so far, this season if that was the case. He'd be getting more shots off. Like it would be great for him and the team if he was shooting better. But there's 2 stats that he's dominated: the assist to turnover ratio, and then his ability to create his own shot in the mid-range, which has just been, for me, so fun to watch. I love the mid-range. I'm a 3-point shooter myself, but I find that to be such a beautiful part of the game because it's a little bit more unique. And so Jaylen's ability to do that, Payton's ability to do that this season has been really fun to watch. And everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? Like when he's in the paint, he has the turnaround. And Jaylen said at postgame, like, it doesn't matter how tall you are if your foot works down the way that it is. And so that part has been really great for him and great for the team. And it's a big reason why the Celtics have the best offense in the NBA, is that they just don't turn the ball over. And tonight was a really good example of that. Want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard, but in life and on PrizePicks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend and elite hoop action almost every night, the action never stops, and PrizePicks lets you take control. Missing your fantasy team, my league is already over, but with PrizePicks, I don't have to wait until next year's draft to keep playing fantasy. PrizePicks lets you play fantasy football every week, even in the playoffs. Pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projections every week. No draft required. PrizePicks now offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Want to pick more on Steph Curry's three-pointers and assists? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup, only on PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So I mentioned Payton Pritchard's success from the mid-range and from not turning the ball over and how pivotal that's been for him this season. But I did want to mention also Sam Hauser, who I think gets a lot of flack. Maybe this is my episode of just defending guys that I think have been maligned a little bit. Sam Hauser gets a lot of flack because his three-point shooting has also not been at his usual kind of consistent self this season. Tonight was a great night for him to get rolling, not just from the outside where he was 5 of 7 from 3, but he also had a great putback. He had a great mid-range shot in that fourth quarter, finishes the night with 19 points on 7 of 10 shooting. And I really liked what I saw from him on the defensive end in particular. And Joe Mazzulla said his defense is top notch. Obviously, you guys always talk about his offense, but he was assigned the RJ Barrett matchup, who RJ Barrett was the best player for Toronto today with Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram sidelined. And honestly, he's been one of the best players in general. If you look at their record with him and without him in the lineup, there's a substantial difference. But I loved the way that he played. He got a late steal there that led to a transition basket. And I think in general, Sam's athleticism is not incomparable to somebody like Ugo or somebody like Jordan. And so those guys, they have a ceiling defensively that's a lot higher, and you see them do things that Sam's just not going to do. But Sam is very disciplined, and he understands matchups and the game plan and the schemes really well. And Joe consistently has been saying that for years, right? Drew Holiday has joked around about that as well. Like, it's a well-known thing. And so I think when we talk about him as a contributor for the Celtics team, I get the sense that he is a ball kind of flying under the radar as a potential option. I don't know. Maybe he gets traded by the deadline. That's February 5th. He is on a more expensive deal than these other younger wings. Like, he's making $10 million a year. That's only going to go up year to year. It's a 4-year contract. So like, this is not me saying like he for sure is going to here to stay, but without a doubt, this is a guy who can do it all for this team and play that wing position, right? And even this season where he hasn't been shooting well, I think that it gets taken for granted what else he does on the floor. So it just, Payton and Sam are, I guess, a good duo because both of those guys made their names, made their money, like made everything because of their outside shooting. But that there's so much more than just that now. And so it's a discredit to them to like just diminish our evaluation of them as players to just their ability to hit shots from the outside. Like, they're much better than that. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt that they're in slumps, right? Like, obviously it'd be better for Sam Hauser if he was shooting lights out this season. It'd be better for the Celtics, but he still has that gravity. Like, nobody's conceding a Sam Hauser 3 because everybody knows exactly how efficient he can be. Let me pull up here what his season stats are, what like the most updated 3-point shooting numbers are. This season, he's now up to 38.6 from 3, which honestly, for all the discussion around his slump, like that's only 3% worse from last year, 4% worse from the year before. And he will say, like, I did a story about him last year where I talked to his mom and everything. Like, he will hit that 40% mark. He always does. So I have no faith. I mean, I have no doubt about that. He's only 1.4% off from 40%, which I say this like every fourth show, but he has never shot below 40% in a single season in his entire NBA or college career. And so that stands out to me quite a bit. I think from my standpoint, it's the other stuff that he did really well tonight that really stood out as well. So those two guys get a lot of the attention and coverage from me today. This was an important win to bounce back. You don't want to lose 2 in a row. They haven't done it since mid-December when they lost to the Bucks. And so you want to show that you can kind of turn things around pretty well. I thought in this game, Jaylen Brown didn't play a perfect game. He saw a lot of more difficult defense, very physical Raptors team. They're an athletic Raptors team. Even though they were down a couple stars, their role players are pretty exceptional at that defensive game plan. And he's been seeing a different coverage since that West Coast road trip. Like, when that streak was developing where he was scoring 30 a night, it rose some alarm bells around the league of like, okay, you know what? Like, maybe let's guard this guy differently, because I do think at the beginning of the season, the idea was Jaylen can shoot from the outside. Jaylen can let him get his 30, but don't let the guys from the outside get hot. Like, the Celtics have been beating teams throughout the Joe Mazzulla tenure from outside shooting, right? Payton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, Anfernee Simons is a new addition who's known for his outside shooting. and Derek White, obviously, who last year had the most threes by any player in Celtics history in one season. And so even myself, I was optimistic about this team. I had them winning 45 games, which now they're on track to win more than that. But the main reason was I was like, they have so many outside weapons. And so I think early on he was seeing more single coverage because teams didn't want to concede those threes. And now like reality is settling in, and like Jaylen Brown is an MVP candidate, and Hauser, Payton, and Derek are all shooting below their career averages. In particular, Payton and Derek, who are their highest volume shooters. And so that's a part of it. Part of it is just like, okay, Jalen's playing really well and winning a lot of games. So like they got to show him different looks. I thought tonight was a great step in his like ability to read those coverages, and he mostly made the right read. He had a couple of turnovers. He didn't have the most efficient shooting. I think he finished 6 of 16 from the field, but overall, I feel like he did enough for them to win this game and to finish, 25 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Like that's a nice stat line. And obviously other guys contributed enough, right? This was the kind of game where you needed somebody else to step up because he wasn't, exploding offensively the way that he has for much of the season. And then I mentioned Anfernee Simons, but once again, he just comes in and just hits timely baskets. Like it's become really, really fun to watch the way that he is able to check into the game and like doesn't miss a beat. And he talked post game about how he's gotten a lot more comfortable. Like there's been highs and lows this season. He's not worried about his name being in trade rumors. He said that he's been in trade rumors since his 3rd year. So he's used to that. He's an NBA vet. Obviously he's on an expiring contract. There's no long-term assurance that he'll be here, but by all accounts, I've only heard positive things from everybody in the organization about the Anfernee Simons experience. And he has been a total pro with the media, talking to us about what this year has been like for him. And Jaylen said a postgame, like he's just become a much better basketball player since he was in October. And for a guy like him, like you got to come in and say, you know what, I'm a franchise player. Like I'm an elite scorer. I'm a borderline all-star level talent. Like I'm not going to come here and come off the bench and like be benched because I didn't play great defense for a couple possessions like he was earlier in the season. I don't think that was his mindset. I think, even if it got hard for him, I'm sure it was frustrating at times. I think that from his perspective, this whole year has been about growth and about contributing to winning. And he has said all the right things. And he honestly has contributed to winning quite a bit. In the month of December, I'm sure people have heard this stat, but he had the best plus minus in the NBA in December. And Joe has said it multiple times. He's flown under the radar a little bit for his contributions to this team. And also, when he comes in, like he hits timely baskets, and those runs that he's been a part of have helped salvage games. And so that's been huge, is kind of seeing all of that. So those are like the 4 guys that stand out. But I really did want to talk about like looking beyond just the shooting numbers. This team only attempted 28 threes tonight. They shot 50% from 3, but they only attempted 28. So the Raptors were able to take away a lot of what like people have been used to, like, oh, that's the Celtics offense. It's just threes. And Joe always says, like, it's not just threes. It's they take what the defense gives them and they take what the personnel can do well. And so I thought that tonight was a great example of like winning in different ways and also looking beyond just the shooting with guys like Payton and Salmon. It's easier for me to deliver this message when they do have good performances. I think you guys will be more receptive, but really this has been pretty consistent. Like Payton doesn't turn the ball over. Sam's been solid defensively, and that stuff has really added up. And it's a big reason why the Celtics have now are 24-13, way ahead of where everybody thought they were going to be, tied with the Knicks for the 2nd best record in the Eastern Conference. And they have the opportunity to continue piling up wins Saturday night against the San Antonio Spurs. That'll be a fun one. And then they hit the road for a 4-game road trip against the Indiana Pacers, Miami Heat, Atlanta Hawks, and Detroit Pistons. So we'll see Kristaps Porzingis on that trip. That'll be fun. I'll be on most of that one, and we'll be able to get a sense of how things are going there. So that's it for now. Again, as always, check out the post-game press conferences. Check out our full hour-and-a-half-long Garden Report show reacting to this game, and be sure to tune in. We'll have coverage all day Saturday from shoot-around to the game itself. So follow along for the Luke Cornett return game.